Trump is doing socialist things in America right now, and people don't really seem to care. It's gotten some coverage, but I don't think that much. Counting 4 companies so far that we'll talk about.
Ooh, 4? Okay. I was at 2. But I would kind of be on this is kind of a nothing burger. All right, we'll see if you can get me worried about this.
Topic of conversation, socialism in America. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a nothing burger. I think, well, we'll see. Well, you, I think, looked into this more than I have, so maybe I'm wrong. Why don't you give us just like an overview of your argument? Like, why do you think that you mentioned 4 companies? I only kind of knew of 2, the Intel and then I guess the chip export revenue thing, but there were 2 more.
Yeah, the big one was U.S. Steel last month as well. The short of it is Trump asked for a quote unquote golden share. Everything he likes is golden. So he got a share in the company and in his capacity as United States president. So he's got some sort of direct influence in it.
Okay. That's new.
Yeah. So like the Intel thing, it's a little bit of a nothing burger in the sense that they allocated funds that were going to be allocated to them or already were allocated to them from the CHIPS Act under Biden. So previously it's like all in, they're going to just give Intel more or less something like $11 billion in grants. And Trump said, well, no, we want something in return for this. The American people should benefit. So now the U.S. government owns 10% of Intel. The other one in Nvidia and AMD, those are, so it's tangential. It's not that they don't have any stake in it, but some more, like, I guess, in the theme of chips, effectively instituting a export tax. The fourth one I didn't even see until like just now, this week when I was looking into this a little more. But apparently also there's a smaller minerals company that creates magnets that the DoD took some stake in the company as well. So Uncle Sam here through the various pieces, and not only just Trump, but the DoD as well. So
yeah, right. The business name president is doing business.
Exactly. And I think just at surface level, that seems to be what everyone's take is. Like, oh, he knows what he's doing, quote unquote. I mean, yeah, like he definitely has that history, and it's, I don't know, how would we feel if like, Biden or Harris came out and were doing things like this, taking partial control of companies, and then, that's central planning, right?
I mean, it's one thing to own equity; it's another to be actively managing it. There's a lot to talk about because you're kind of getting to like the sovereign wealth territory. Is this going to be a model going forward? Are they going to use this all the time? What is it exactly? I think we should start by saying that like this is kind of tied together with that sovereign wealth fund that they wanted to set up, and we have to remember that executive order just to like lay this out. The executive order that was passed in February, all that said was, essentially that Besant and Lutnick had like 90 days to come up with a plan. That's it. He's not setting up a plan for establishing a sovereign wealth fund. Now it's been over 90 days. I looked really hard. I couldn't find the actual plan. So that's still public. So presumably there's kind of a roadmap or something right now on the president's desk that was drafted to him by, the Commerce Department and the Treasury. We don't know what it looks like. I would love to see that.
I might even guess that it just wasn't done.
Why do you think that?
Those guys are busy.
Well, they don't actually write it, Joe. Okay.
Well, yeah, they also don't do all the legwork to put these trade deals together.
Exactly. So what do you mean? They're just too busy to write up?
Well, too busy like trying to strike these trade deals with effectively every country in the world.
Oh, you could find a team at Treasury to kind of put something together. This isn't like the
not
first.
Not in this Doge era. Any fat got cut.
No.
Everyone's busy, Luke.
No, it didn't.
Efficiency.
No, it didn't. Plenty of people would love to tackle that project. There's a plan. We just haven't seen it.
Yeah, but I pulled it up here. Maybe it's worth just a quick look. I guess this is the only primary source that we have on this right now because we don't
It's
actually have
really
the
the only
report.
one, unfortunately. They're just like kind of copies of it elsewhere that you could find in the register and stuff. But it was kind of a sad. We can't really go into it. Otherwise, that plan would be great to look into and
Yeah.
rip apart because the amount of decisions that have to be made when setting up a sovereign wealth fund, I mean, are extremely important. In fact, I'll just mention one other thing. It's not as though this hasn't been thought of before. So I guess in 2024 in April, this guy, Representative Morgan McGarvey, a Democrat out of Kentucky, wanted to or introduced a bill called the American Sovereign Wealth Fund Exploration Act.
Oh, really?
No one ever heard that because it was introduced but never passed out of the House. But it's quite thoughtful. It basically says, okay, um, we want to set up a commission that's going to investigate a some answers to the following things. What are the sources of revenue for the fund? What is the composition of the funds and which assets would be attainable by the fund? Are they going to hold stock in equities, bond, real estate? What are the funds going to be used for? You know, general revenues, existing governmental programs, dividends, debt reduction, social programs, infrastructure. What are the management and operational logistics of the fund? Right? Are they going to use GAP, Santiago principles? What are the personnel structure, the legal framework, political independence, oversight, ethics, ownership? What are the projected outcomes, the plausible scenarios for the fund? What are the implications of the operation? And then you give a whole bunch of things as to what, could possibly happen if we set up a sovereign wealth fund. Things like corruption, political interference, inflation, growth, all the other things that people are concerned about. And I think they gave them like 2 years for this commission to do the report. Now that sounds like, okay, we're going to put some real thought into it. And stuff like this happens quite a bit. I know with like the Federal Reserve System, I think they gave them like 5 years to like figure this out. So like the Federal Reserve Act was passed in whatever it was, 1908 or something. I'm sort of pulling this out, but it wasn't set up until like 1913. It was like 5 years of them like thinking about this stuff. So the whole idea of him just signing an EO and then being like, oh, we have a sovereign wealth fund now.
Here it is.
No, it's just no. There's a plan somewhere. And in my take, looking into this and why I think it's kind of a nothing burger is this intel is like, it makes really good headlines. It gets people talking about it. It sort of introduces it into our lexicon. Oh, the US has a sovereign wealth fund. It makes these kind of deals sort of kind of play into this other positive thing, a sovereign wealth fund, make America rich, all that kind of thing, when it has nothing to do with it. They're two totally different things. That's kind of why I think it's something of a nothing burger. I think we're being a little bit manipulated here, to put it another way.
Trump is so many things. He's also the reality TV star. He just constantly is just punting these things out here to get people riled up, and he
I
just
think you know what I've heard? I've heard like Trump at rallies. You know, the reason why there are so many terrible quotes of him and good quotes because he's up there and he's just trying material. He's just trying.
He's
stuff.
up there doing improv.
He's improving. You know I mean, how come it takes Bill Burr 2 years to come out with a special? It's because within those 2 years, he's working all the good stuff. He's trying to find where all the cream is. Okay. Oh, I said this way, got a laugh. Mental note. And this kind of feels, what happens? What's kind of, so right now he's got a temperature just jabbed into the American public right now, kind of gauging the temperature. But like the headlines and they're eating it up. They love it. That's when people start writing opinions. This is what the Wall Street Journal does, whatever it is. Oh, how come we don't, let's interview experts. What are the pros and cons of a sovereign wealth fund? What does this intel really mean and then people talk like us. We just talk. But I think it's a big fat nothing burger.
Here we are, though.
And here we are. We're doing it. We're part of the ecosystem now, Joe.
We gotta get some of those clicks.
I sort of shudder to think of what thumbnail you're going to come up with for this one. Anyway, let's just to get all that baggage off of my chest. That's kind of, after looking into it, looking at the notes, just briefly, that's kind of my take so far. But that said, I didn't really appreciate that Steele thing I didn't know about. And I haven't looked into that DOD and I haven't seen the clips yet. So if they want to make this kind of a model going forward, That would be interesting. That would be interesting. I think what they're doing with this Intel thing is, like I said, they're testing the waters. They're seeing if they can get away with it because there's some legality questions in there, right? And you're probably going to go into it with the Intel, where and you look at the Chips Act, and they sort of list out all the things in which the chips could invest, all the different investment tracks you could do it, and they list them out, right? Um, grants, all loans, all the things that you said, but they didn't explicitly say equity. So the question is kind of like, oh, does that count? Can you do that? And so I think where they're going to try to test this out, and if it works, if it makes it through the courts and stuff, and no one slaps them back, then they're probably going to keep doing it.
So I think the Intel one is formally complete. That's kind of where or in contrast, the Nvidia one is in like legal limbo right now. So this happened like 2 weeks ago, but yesterday they just had their like quarterly earnings call, and then like the CFO, throughout all that, and like the CFO made a comment, basically said like we don't have to do this yet. Like there's no legal actual regulation, or nothing was put on paper saying that we have to do this. It's like if we are given a legal document saying this is how it's going to work now, fine. But as of right now, we just don't have it.
So you're talking about Intel right now?
Nvidia.
You're talking about Nvidia. Yeah. Right. Intel is done. They sent out their own press release. Yeah.
Yeah. So that said, maybe let's just zoom through this real quick, get a little more detail. Really not a whole lot written on it. Like you said, it's just all of the news outlets kind of being fantastical about it. And but also oddly enough, like the White House website didn't put anything out on this. Usually that's like, again, like the reality TV president, that anytime he does anything, he loves doing that, putting out a press release, getting people together in the Oval Office and getting on camera and talking about it. But he really didn't do one of these for this.
Well, he had that tweet. It sounded pretty defensive.
Well, yeah, that was just him just being angry. Like, I mean, get the staffers to write up this whole big memo and post it online, and get the camera crews ready. That was just him on Twitter.
Oh, I see what you mean. It was just him on Twitter. They didn't have like a formal big deal set anything. Okay. So what is this? Anything in here that we should focus on?
This is as close to primary as I can get here. So, coming from Intel and Trump administration reached historic agreement to accelerate American technology and manufacturing leadership. A lot of buzzwords right up front there. Makes so to your point, that makes it sound a little bit of a nothing burger, but
Yeah, the only thing I looked through this, the only thing I would say, the investment, it is new stock. It was a primary issuance. So this isn't them going into the secondary market and buying stock. This is like cash directly into the coffers at Intel in exchange for stock.
yeah, it's like the U.S. government doesn't have to call up their broker and say, "Get me 11 billion of Intel."
Right. And it says, the government's investment in Intel will be passive ownership, no board representation or governance or information rights. And then they say they also agree to vote with the company's board of directors. That must be a nice positive thing for Intel. I've read some of those board briefs, and some of them are pretty cringe. The amount of like kind of activist investors that come up, probably wouldn't mind having 10% behind them. So that was probably a big win, although they did say with limited exceptions. So it sounds like the U.S. could vote against, again, but we don't have any details there.
And if there's one thing we know about Trump, is that he does what he wants. He's just freewheeling. So I guess in the like thematic way of, are we already seeing a handful of these? Are they, and to your point, testing the waters a little bit here, and they've got a little tiny bit of language in here that might open a door, or even that alone just seems like it's like Trump could give literally any justification and stand behind that to make some material decision for the company.
Yeah.
Will he do that? I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility right now.
Yeah.
But
you got to kind of wonder if the people
see.
who draft the people under Biden, right? The Biden administration passed the Chip Acts. You got to wonder if the people who sort of wrote that segment aren't kind of kicking themselves a little bit, because sure enough, the president after them takes up the legislation, applies their own lawyers, have a little think about it, and they're like, we might be able to get away with this. you know?
And they did, yeah. It's like they already
Um,
allocated the funds.
right. Funding, whatever the language was, is like, why not equity? I want to be in that room and someone was like, can we do equity? And they're like, well, it doesn't say we can't do equity. Like, let's try it. Um, anyway, that's honest to God what I think happened.
Probably.
One of the big questions kind of with sovereign wealth funds is what its purpose is. And I think for in one case it could be like a stabilization. So if you have some countries that have a lot of their income from exports of like natural gas or something, a natural resource that can fluctuate a lot with the prices and demand. So they might have set up like a sovereign wealth fund to help smooth that out. It's like a stabilization fund. Another one is like a kind of pension. So I think Norway has something like that. Um, Sort of invest and help with pensions. The US arguably already has that. Like we've covered this on that Social Security trust fund. I mean, that effectively, that's the pension sovereign wealth fund. I mean, kind of, right? It's just super limited in what it can
Yeah.
invest in.
Yeah.
Um,
The US pension.
yeah. And then the last one is a strategic. So like China has one, I think like Korea has one in which they're applying. So far, the way the language is kind of floating out, just based on where the investments are going, it looks like they're going to be plugging for a strategic sort of sovereign wealth fund, which means that also means that all this talk about returns and stuff, that is not the top priority, right? I mean, if they're looking at steel, semiconductors, chips,
That's the other that's the main theme.
DoD stuff, that is not, those are not looking for returns. That's to apply strategic, that's pressure, strategic, whatever. Um, Again, in the context of a sovereign wealth fund, which does not exist yet.
Because in America, this doesn't really happen except in extraordinary circumstances around economic crises. So we saw it, you know, after the 2008 crisis briefly. Fannie and Freddie were
Yeah, when you say, sorry, when you say it, you mean it, like taking over companies and investing in equity in a company. I mean,
right. Well, put under so Fannie and Freddie, and they still are today, put under government conservatorship. So it's I'm not an expert in the details there, but they're not a private company. You know, they're directly affiliated with the government. There's certain things that the government tells them they can and can't do above and beyond, you know, what just the everyday laws of the land are. And then obviously the other one is just wartime. So extraordinary circumstances. Sometimes you have to redirect resources into the key critical areas. And to your point, that looks a lot like what this is. Like we're not in an economic crisis or a war or anything like that, but I guess to Trump's credit, at least for some consistency on day one and ever since, he's been declaring these emergencies. Like it was a threat to national security, I think he said, the trade deficits, right? So you can take extraordinary measures to try to fix that, which he's been doing through the whole tariff saga. But you're right, this is like very narrowly picking and choosing key strategic areas. This AI arms race is heating up pretty quickly. Intel, Nvidia, AMD, and then it's this other mineral company that I'll go over here. That's like the key component is to make the magnets that China produces like 80% of the world's of this type of magnet. And that was a key piece of leverage that China has and does have so far in the ongoing trade talks. And that's partly part of the reason why Trump actually allowed again for Nvidia to sell any chips to China. Previously, there was an outright ban, or Congress was advocating for this outright ban on national security concerns, which I think is legitimate. It's a hugely strategic thing, but at the same time, he needs a little bit of leverage over China, the way that China needs a little bit of leverage over the U.S. to get this trade deal hammered out. So he kind of gave a little bit there to maybe get some of the magnets or something. That was one of the key sticking points in that initial round of trade talks that they did over in Switzerland a few months back. Trump was tweeting in all caps about how, oh, the magnets are flowing again, everyone, don't worry. So he's, very, very focused on those key areas. And, everything we said is all, focused on China, really.
That's an interesting last comment. This is all you think just moves to get him better leverage in negotiations. I think we talked about it when we covered it at the time that I think Trump got put on his butt a little bit. He's reeling.
Yeah, I mean, his tariff war has kind of worked remarkably well for him so far. China's the only one that has not the only one that put up a fight, but the only one that has been able to become a pain for Trump, that actually has some material leverage. Canada's the other that put up a fight and backed down multiple times
Since they became the 51st state. Is that what you're going to say?
Oh, that's one of the biggest disappointments so far of the year. We just had that conversation die out. I guess after we solve this AI chip war and all the other wars going on in the world, then we can get back to the stuff that really matters. So this is an amended.
That's what I like to see, Joe. That's what I'm talking about. Only here you're going to see text this small.
I All right, yeah, here we go. So this is an amended registration with the SEC for U.S. Steel that was submitted after this deal was struck.
Sorry, so what is this? Certificate of incorporation? So they were going to amend and restate. Okay, that's some interesting.
Yeah, so here's what they call the golden share. Corporation shall not, directly or indirectly, by amendment, merger, consolidation, or otherwise, without at any time when Donald J. Trump is serving as president of the U.S., without the written consent of Trump or Trump's designee. So the company shall not do any of these things while Trump is president, without his permission. Alter, amend, repeal, or waive any provision of this certificate. Change the corporation's name from U.S. Steel.
He's not going to be like, Trump Steel Corporation.
Well, Trump could make that change.
Exactly. He could. Just wait. I think we see the headlines next month.
But yeah, so can't change the name, can't change the headquarters from Pennsylvania, can't reduce, waive, or delay any capital investment subject to receipt of necessary approvals and permits on an expedited basis.
That was kind of interesting. Hold on, scroll up. This one, D. Prior to June 18th, 2027, close, idle, or sell corporation's Granite City Works or any other production location. So this sort of looks to be, making sure that workers are still employed here. That's weird.
So this is direct government intervention.
I mean, that feels
in this company, right?
Yeah, so, in order to really look into it, you'd have to compare it to whatever the previous thing was. Is this new? What is this? But that's pretty weird. That's like hardcore, old school, Soviet Union kind of keeping factories open and have them not. Oh, sorry. This is God. There's so many.
That's what it is.
All the synonyms too, just have the same connotation.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, I'm going to reserve judgment a little bit here to make sure that I'm understanding this right. But just on the first read, it looks as though, and again, we show you this, and we're kind of tripping over coffee tables with you as we kind of read through this to kind of just make your own decision here. But to me, that reads like, okay, we're going to keep these factories open. You can't close them, even if they're not economical.
Yeah. And then
that's weird.
F down here, affect any material acquisition of a business domiciled in the U.S. that competes with the corporation or its suppliers. So preventing further consolidation, though. You have to stay open, but you can't.
Well, material acquisition of a business that competes with a corporation. Yeah. Sorry, scroll up. So the thing is saying you need to get Trump's permission before you basically would do a merger.
Yeah, corporations shall not without written consent from Donald J. Trump. Just him personally.
What is CMAs? It says written consent of the CMAs as parties to the NSA.
Question. Is Control F failing me? I'm trying to look for the first time it's mentioned. Oh, here we go. Department of Treasury and the U.S. Department of Commerce as the CFIUS monitoring agencies.
Ooh, okay. Wow, look at that. We got a second order derivative of acronyms here.
Yeah.
The C in CMA is another acronym.
Government work at its finest. Deep.
Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States. Okay.
All right. Here we go. Look at G. Shall not implement pricing of its average spot sales during any rolling 6-month period below 85% of the corresponding 6-month average for that applicable steel product as publicly published by the U.S. Midwest Domestic Hot Rolled Coil Steel Index. So you can only lower your prices by 15% on some rolling basis. So if prices do collapse, it would slow it down. Oh, and then look at I. Shall not reduce the base salary of employees before June 2030.
Well, wait a minute. This is kind of, but doesn't this thing say that only when Trump is the president, and then they're putting these things out? Okay, fine. So you need like written approval of this stuff, but then it also goes past his second term. So how are you going to get written permission from the president of the United States in 2030? What are you saying, Joe? Maybe he's still president? Yeah.
Well, no, because JD Vance is going to run and then he'll resign on his first day.
And you're saying that Donald Trump will run it as his VP?
Yeah. So, like, there was this moment for some reason, like at the beginning of the year, but people were actually talking about this. And I remember, that because there's these like legal columns saying it's like, well, it's not that you can't be president more than 2 terms. It's that you can't run more than for more than 2 terms.
They're going to say you can't be elected more than twice.
I think that's what
same
that
idea.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we've got our point across here. This has prompted some interesting conversations.
Yeah, even Jay.
Just
Jay, make material changes to the corporation existing raw materials and steel sourcing strategy in the United States.
Yeah, pretty tight guidelines.
Okay. All right, Joe. You're definitely starting to convince me a little bit. This is kind of weird.
All right, next one. MP Materials announces transformational public-private partnership with the DoD to accelerate U.S. rare earth magnets independence. Multi-billion-dollar DoD commitment to MP Materials to catalyze domestic production, and the DoD is positioned to become the company's largest shareholder. So not even taking a stake, but being the largest shareholder. That's
Yeah.
the 10-year price floor commitment and 10-year magnet offtake agreement.
They announced it has entered into a transformational public-private partnership with the DoD to dramatically accelerate the build-out of an end-to-end U.S. rare earth magnet supply chain and reduce foreign dependency. Well, I mean, geez, they just don't just come right out and say it. Multi-billion-dollar package of investment and long-term commitments. Construct the company's second domestic magnet manufacturing facility, the 10X facility. I guess they're trying to 10X the output or something. I don't know why it's called that. Soon to be chosen location.
To serve both defense and commercial customers.
Also add additional heavy rare earth separation capability at its Mountain Pass, California. I don't know. So what's your take on this? I mean, I don't know why, but this one doesn't bother me as much for some reason. I need to do some self-reflection here.
So I guess for one thing, the intel in this one, it's from the company website, so it's technically a primary source, but they're obviously going to build it up and place it in the best light, right? Some like it's drawn up into a narrative. It's not like the SEC incorporation documents like we were just looking at that lays it out in black and white legal language.
Oh, look at that. Go down. Entered into a 10-year agreement establishing a price floor commitment of 110 per kilogram. Period of 10 years following the construction. DoD has agreed to ensure that 100% of the magnets produced will be purchased by defense and commercial customers. Well, gee, yeah, I mean, might as well just take it over. It's going to be your entire...
Well, what does that mean? 100% purchased by defense and commercial customers. Isn't...
Oh.
Like, who else?
Yeah, I guess I read that assuming it would be a meaningful sentence.
Well, no, I mean, that's a good point, though. It's like, what, I mean, is it excluding foreign customers? It doesn't really say.
Right.
But, I mean, 10-year price floor, that's also effectively price fixing. And that defense and commercial throws me off a little bit, but they're like,
I mean, a price
We're going to
floor.
buy 100% of it.
I mean, a price floor. That's going to be that's a bone to MP Materials, obviously. So they're saying like, we're going to invest all this, but we can pretty much guarantee that if you can produce it, we will buy it, and we will buy it at a good price.
But you have to produce it. Like the government is telling them you have to do this now.
Yeah.
We're going to,
Okay.
like, it looks like, yeah, you're right. Like some pretty good terms for the company, but they don't have strategic decision making ability anymore. They now have to make 10 times the amount of magnets.
Okay. And I guess, this sort of build out, the capital investment is going to include some debt. JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and it looks like 150 million loan from the DoD. So they're going to put in some debt and some equity.
Interesting. DoD agreed to purchase 400 million.
Yeah, they put on its business suit,
preferred stock.
It took off the military jacket and put on a business suit, doing some deals.
DoD is positioned to become the company's largest shareholder. 15% of the company's issued and outstanding shares of common stock. So yeah, that's I didn't hear about this one at all, actually, whenever it came out.
And this is kind of coming into focus as we get to the bottom of this thing. So they're saying MP Materials, which I didn't hear about. I don't, it's not really a household name here. But what it does, it's a rare earth mine, and it extracts, refines, and separates rare earth. That doesn't say anything about making magnets. I guess what they did was they went around and they looked at like who could potentially vertically integrate. And they're probably looking around and they found this mine and they said, hey, we're going to invest a whole bunch and you're going to build a magnet factory. You already got the raw materials, just build the factory and we'll give you the funds to do it and we'll give you a demand on the other side of it.
That's right. That's government, the central institution, planning out what a business should do.
I don't quite follow, Joe. What are you implying?
I mean, sounds like it though, right?
It does, to be honest. Has this happened before? This has happened before, right? I mean, it's got to happen like wartime stuff like this, where Henry Ford and stuff start making tanks.
Yeah, exactly. It happens during wartime or economic crises, but it doesn't seem like we're in either of those things right now.
I don't mind operating with some urgency, but I mean, in terms of like seeming, yeah, I guess we are technically in that emergency state, right? They gave him that. I guess it's set up to like legal tests or whatever it has to be. But the trade deficit is considered a national emergency. It's an economic national emergency. So this is what happens. Vertical integration. Okay, this is interesting. I didn't know about this. Thanks for telling me about this, Joe.
Yeah, so let's see here. The Nvidia one's tough still because there's not a whole lot of. I don't think anything has been put on paper yet, even.
Yeah, we don't have any primary sources to point to, so we'll just kind of skip it.
Well, we've got the source of Trump talking about it. Does that count?
That counts. It's kind of.
Two questions, one about China, one about Russia. If I could, on China, your administration agreed to send the most advanced or advanced Nvidia and AMD chips.
No, obsolete. No.
Obsolete chip. Well, and then 15% of the
You mean
profits.
the
come back.
20s? No. This is an old chip that China already has. And I deal with Jensen, who's a great guy, and Nvidia. The chip that we're talking about, the H20, it's an old chip. China already has it in a different form, different name, but they have it. Or they have a combination of two will make up for it and even then some. Now, Jensen's a very brilliant guy, and Jensen also has a new chip, the Blackwell. Do you know what the Blackwell is? The Blackwell is super duper advanced. I wouldn't make a deal with that, although it's possible I'd make a deal, a somewhat enhanced in a negative way Blackwell. In other words, take 30% to 50% off of it. But that's the latest and the greatest in the world. Nobody has it. They won't have it for 5 years. But the H20 is obsolete. It's one of those things, but it still has a market. So I said, listen, I want 20% if I'm going to approve this for you, for the country, for our country, for the U.S. I don't want it myself. Every time I say like 747, I want, yeah, for the Air Force. So I just wanted. So when I say I want 20, I want for the country. I only care about the country. I don't care about myself. And He said, would you make it 15? So we negotiate a little deal. So he's selling a essentially old chip that.
All right, yeah. So I've got a couple minutes about stakes in private companies and the sovereign wealth fund here.
I want to listen to Howie.
Company for free, because lots of companies are potentially now beneficiaries, domestic US companies, of your tariffs. Is that enough to warrant a 1%, a 2%, a 3% stake for free?
No, and free is a funny way to say it. I mean, it's correct in that the Biden administration had contracted $11 billion out the door, and Donald Trump and the Trump administration turned that into $11 billion of equity. But the money was already out the door. So I think the key is, where is the United States of America adding fundamental value to your business? If we are adding fundamental value to your business, I think it's fair for Donald Trump to think about the American people. I mean, one of those issues was we give hundreds of billions of dollars to universities, and they keep the patents. Don't you think America should get a stake in the patents, that we finance the research? We give the money. I mean, if it was commercial, we surely would get a piece of these patents.
What about defense companies, though,
for America?
Secretary? Why shouldn't the U.S. government say, you know what, we use Palantir services, we would like a piece of Palantir. We use Boeing services, we would like a piece of Boeing. There are a lot of businesses that do business with the U.S. government that benefit by doing business with the U.S. government. I guess the question is, where's the line?
Oh, there's a monstrous discussion about defense. I mean, Lockheed Martin makes 97% of their revenue from the U.S. government. They are basically an arm of the U.S. government. They make exquisite munitions. I mean, amazing things that can knock a missile out of the air when it's coming towards you. But what's the economics of that? I'm going to leave that to my Secretary of Defense and the Deputy Secretary of Defense.
How exactly would these stakes be assessed to prevent politicization?
Well, let's be clear. There's no sovereign wealth fund now. We're not spending the American taxpayers' dollars on anything, right? Biden gave away $11 billion, and Donald Trump took back, right, an equity stake for the money that Biden had given away. We're not starting a sovereign wealth fund. What you're going to see is you're going to see a national and economic security fund built with the Japanese money, the Korean money, and other countries' money. They're going to give us money to build our infrastructure out in America. Those are the deals that Donald Trump made, using his tariffs, not using the money from the tariffs, but using the commitment of these countries that fundamentally understand a strong and powerful America is necessary for the world to be successful.
What do you think, Luke?
I got a little worried for his health when he was lingering on that word necessary. But other than that, he came out and said it. We don't have a sovereign wealth fund, because he knows that his report hasn't been read yet by Trump.
If it even exists, I still
don't know why you
think
keep thinking. You don't think it exists? Why do you think it exists?
Yeah, they're
report?
too busy.
That's like what are like bureaucracies the best at, is writing those reports. They live to write.
But
those
that's
reports.
the thing. Like,
there's
this,
a report.
Well,
we just don't know.
This guy is not
no one's read it yet.
bureaucracy. This guy, he is old school. New York investment banking. Like he put on his little kind of banking hat a little bit at the start there. He was saying if America is providing fundamental value to these companies, they need to be compensated with equity. That's like a total banker mentality. And at what level is it savvy business folks like him and Trump and whoever else? Besant was in the financial industry for like 40 years. When does it start to look a little more central planning like? And would we think the same thing if this happened 2 or 3 years ago?
So, I mean, of the four things that we looked at briefly, the chips, Nvidia, Intel, those kind of look like nothing burgers to me, more or less. But the other two that you sort of dug into, those are interesting. I don't really have a good answer, because when we dug into the steel, yeah, there's some weird language in there. Not to say that like I'm a corporate lawyer or something, or this is anywhere, but that felt a little funny to me. And then the DoD thing, where they're just like, you're going to vertically integrate this thing. You're going to build this thing out for us. I haven't seen that before. I don't know if that's completely unprecedented. That would be a question I had. Has this happened before? Does this happen? In what context? But that also is pretty strange. I would be curious to know under what kind of legal authority that the DoD would have to do something like that. You know, the CHIPS Act, that was the authority for, like, you know, Intel. I think there were some other ones, although it's a little fuzzier, but you can see an en route for Nvidia. US Steel, I don't know. And then that mine, I don't know.
The last one that's been outstanding for a long time now is TikTok as well. Like, remember, they're supposed to find a US buyer. Trump set a deadline. I think he's kicked it back at least once, maybe twice now at this point. But earlier on, he was talking about the US should take like a 50% stake in whatever agreement eventually comes out of this. So he's been thinking in this direction, you know, before this month and last, for sure. And even just given that one, there's probably going to be more to come here. We'll see how those companies do over the next couple of years here.
I want to see that report. I want to see what they're thinking. All those questions that were raised when it was first kind of passed, or when it was first raised in the House, but it never went anywhere from that. All those questions about like how these funds work and all that are super important, and we don't have any insight on it. All we can do is speculate based on the actions and a couple of things that's written in these. But it looks to be strategic. You know, are they just going to wait for Intel? Are they just now looking to exit the balance after they get a return? Or are they going to just hold on to it? You know, how could you not? Yeah, I
raised a lot of questions.
Yeah, I wonder if I can just rattle them off, but I don't know. I mean, I just don't like, you know, it in general, like the power of the purse is supposed to be one of the biggest checks that Congress has over the president. If they could somehow have, you know, the president become a fund manager, essentially like a one-person fund manager, then all of a sudden the power of the purse gets sort of shifted over to the president, and they can just apply pressure in this sort of investment manner, and throw so much weight around. It's crazy. That's like, you know, and that's what they do. That's what I think. Again, I'm a little bit cynical in this direction, but, you know, politics, like the actual definition of that word is the exercise, like the study and exercise of power. It's just power. And my natural gut reaction is to be against something like that. It's kind of the centralization and the ability to apply pressure like that, because that's, I think, how it would be used. You would have to set up some serious governance around it. I gotta just withhold. There's so many open questions that it's not even worth like putting forward an opinion yet, until you actually see until you actually like kind of get some clarity into what that the structure would be. But in general, I'm against it.
I mean, we just heard it here last week. In the U.S., capital drives politics. In China, politics drives capital. This is looking a little more in that latter direction over in America now.
Yeah, that's an interesting connection.
Just overall, I think that's the high-level apprehension about this influence by the president. It's like, what kind of influence is he going to eventually exert on these companies? What's that going to do to competition? What's that going to do to competitors? It's very unclear. History shows us that whenever the government tries to dictate these things, it usually doesn't end up good for really anyone involved. Can Trump break that trend? It seems like a tall order even for him, but I guess we'll see. All right, well, that's everything that I've got for you this week, Luke. Thanks for chatting here. Thanks to all you at home for tuning in. This is the Root of All Evil podcast. I'm Joe.
I'm Luke.
We'll see you next week.